y'all. Welcome to the Work Harder Mama podcast. This is a podcast for moms who want to work with heart wholeheartedly in their purpose for the Lord. Hey everyone, welcome to the Work Harder Mama podcast. We have a special guest here today, Miss Linda Arms. And I first met Miss Arms. I'm going to call her Linda, but I always called her Miss Arms. I first met her in 2005 when I started my teaching career. She was the administrator of our building. She has 40 years of education experience. She taught in the classroom for 28 years, and then she was 12 years working as an administrator. And I was a brand new teacher working in career and technical education, and she was a mentor to me. And I'll never forget her first words. When I came into the school before school started, we didn't have a textbook, and she said, "You're just going to have to wing it." And that's what we did that first year. But she was a great mentor, and she was someone I always felt like I could go to with questions. She was always honest, and she was very caring with the students. Everyone highly regarded her in her position, and I think she used that position as a ministry in her teaching and her administrative years. She retired, but she has not stopped. She is now working as a tour guide for the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville, Tennessee, and she is volunteering with English language learners. She teaches that, and she also volunteers with the Good News Club. Did I say that right? And
Right.
she has not stopped. She is a mom to 2 adult children, and she has 6 grandchildren. And before her husband passed away, they were married almost 49 years. So everyone, please welcome Linda to the podcast today. Thank you for being here.
Good to be here, Michelle. Thank you.
So I just have some questions I would love to share with our audience, your wisdom and just some of your life experiences as a mom and a teacher, educator, grandmother, wife, anything you want to throw in from your years of experience, we would appreciate that wisdom. So I always like to start back before we were ever moms and ask, what is your favorite childhood memory of your mom?
When I think about that, Michelle, it would be hard to obviously just give you one memory. My mom, I was the youngest of 5 children, and we lived in very inconvenient circumstances when I was growing up. My mom and dad were married. They provided a very functional home. Mother cooked for us a homemade breakfast every morning before we left for school. She, with her treadle sewing machine, she made things for us. My mother was a rock. My mother was an example of a fine Christian lady. She didn't preach to us. She didn't do a lot of praying before us. She just lived out her Christian life. And just the solidness of the love and compassion. She met the needs of her 5 children, her husband, and a brother-in-law that had cerebral palsy that lived with us. So mom and dad both were examples of just how you raise 5 children in a very loving home. So it would just be the memories of a wonderful mom that I treasure and value. She died many years ago, but I hope that I live up to her standards. I do. As a mom.
That's a great example of a mom that
Yes.
wanted to achieve the
Yes.
same. That's a good memory too. I think that's a good memory from your childhood.
Right.
So what
Right.
about you? What is one of your favorite memories being a mom or a grandmother? Either one or both?
I think having your children, the birth of your children is, obviously you've never experienced anything quite like that. So you've been pregnant for 9 months, and particularly with my first one. So you're anxious for that day. And then when it happens, it's hard to believe that you're holding this child that you and your husband, it's an example of you and your husband and your love for each other. So the birth of my children would have to be the best memory, if I had to just narrow it down to a memory. And just then the joy, particularly in those years of learning to be a mom and learning to adjust to, you don't sleep much at night or whatever, but because of the mother I had, I think that it was easy for me to be the mother that I hope that I was to my children. It was just being able. I am a Christian. I've never not known Jesus. And I think my love for Jesus and my love for the Lord plays into all the decisions you make in life. And being a good mom definitely was what I wanted to be. And I think the example of my mother and being a Christian mother, I think helped me to be the mother that I hope that I was and still am to my children. You know, once you become a mom, you're a mom 24/7 for the rest of your life. And you have good days and you have some bad days. I will say parenting is probably the hardest, most rewarding thing you'll ever do. So it was a joy being a mom. It's been a joy being a grandmother. And we create those good experiences. And then sometimes, you try to create something and it falls through. But for the most part, it has been a joy being a mom and being a grandmother.
Amen to that. I heard a quote
Yes,
once about teaching when I was teaching about how all professions, flow through a teacher's hands, but I think that can also be said about mothers.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Right.
So
Right.
that's a great example. Okay, so let's go back to when you first became a mom. Who or what helped you the most during those early days?
I'll tell you that my mom actually came and lived with us, well, stayed with us for the first 2 weeks. And then when she left, I thought, oh my goodness, I don't know whether I can do this without her. And obviously I did. So obviously my mom actually came and helped me the first 2 weeks. But again, I think the example that my mother was to me, and I just think it's instinctively I wanted to be a mom, and it comes natural. I think if you enjoy the ideal of being a mom and that responsibility, it's frightening. It's frightening to know that you're responsible for a life, but the joy that you have. So my examples would have to, and my help and my influence, again, would have to go back to my mother. I really can't say that necessarily close friends that were maybe mothers at that time, or they didn't have children. So I would say the influence of my mother, and just instinctively it just became natural as to the mother that I should be.
And
So I think that's it. Yeah.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. How old were you when you first became a mom?
I was 26 years old.
Yeah, 26. So
26.
you were
Yeah.
already teaching then, correct?
I had, yes, I was teaching. Absolutely. Yeah.
You're already working and being a working mom.
But that, and they were both born in May. And so I had the whole summer with them. And then in the fall, I was blessed in that I had a lady that could come to the house and stay with both of my children. And so she would get there, and then I would leave and go to school. And then when I got home in the afternoon, they were there. That was a blessing that I didn't have to get up and get my children out. I can't say that being a working mom is what I would want for everybody. It was hard, but I was a mom first. I was a mom first. I was a Christian. I was my dedication to the Lord, my dedication to my family, and my dedication to my profession. And I didn't want to sacrifice anything. I wanted to be the best mom I could be, and I wanted to be the best educator I could be, because I owed that to my students. I owed that to the Robertson County Board of Education. So my husband and our life was being dedicated to the Lord, our families, and then our professions.
Awesome. Did you ever have your kids in class?
Yes, I did. I did. I had both of them. I had both of them in Sunday school. I
Mm.
taught both of them in Sunday school as youth, and I taught both of them in accounting. I taught accounting in high school, and I had both of them. Yes,
How did
and
that?
neither one turned out to be accountants. They're married.
Oh,
They're married to accountants. They're married. One's married to a CPA, and the other one is married to one that majored in accounting in college. So they
That's
married accountants.
full
Yes,
circle, but with their spouses. That's so funny.
yes,
Um,
absolutely.
So what do you remember if you had any challenges as a parent, besides the lack of sleep you mentioned early on? Were there any other, difficult challenges that you had to overcome?
The difficulty in being a working mom, and so we'll talk about that, is, and there's lots of working moms, and is that you get up of a morning and your child is somewhat sick. Now you've got a lady that's coming to the house, and then you are a teacher, and if you don't go to school that day, you're going to have to be replaced. Now, not all professions require that. Some professions are such that you call in sick, but you don't have to be replaced. Maybe teachers, you have to be replaced, and so the challenge of saying, "Do I need to be a mom, a stay-at-home mom today, or are they not too sick where I could go on to school and be the educator to my students and to my profession?" And so that challenge of trying to decide and being a working mom with a sick child is to, which one, are they sick and should I stay at home? And that was a challenge. That was a challenge. Both of my children were healthy children. So we didn't have challenges of diseases and illnesses and whatever. It was just the normal things. As the children got older, and then if they had difficulty in school, and that sort of thing, sort of knowing how to balance that as an educator. My son always would say, if he came home and a teacher maybe had a problem with him, he'd say, "Mama, you just always believe the teacher." And I said, "Yes, son, I do. I really do always believe the teacher." But my children were just typical. My children were just typical children. Like I said, they weren't, I'm thinking about, they had chicken pox. They both had chicken pox at the same time, you know, just dealing with those issues of, I think they had chicken pox at Christmas time. And therefore we really just couldn't do Christmas like we would have otherwise. So, in being a parent, you don't write things down on a calendar. You don't know, say, now next week it'd be a convenient time for the children to have chicken pox. Well, no, you don't do that, and so those things that being a mom, you've got to learn to go with the flow. You've got to learn to monitor and adjust as we do in the classroom, and just pray, God, give me the strength and the wisdom to react appropriately to whatever happens to me. And that is a prayer that I pray often. Help me to react appropriately to whatever happens to me in being a mom and any of the roles that I play in life. And Michelle, being a mom, I think probably once you have children, should be the most important role that you play in life. Now, I was a mom, I was a school teacher, I was a Sunday school teacher. I played a lot of different roles in life. I was a sister, I was a daughter. So we play lots of different roles in life, and I still do. But I think that once you have those children, I think that you have got to realize, you've got to be the best mom that you can be to those children as long as you are on this earth.
I,
It's pretty
I,
important.
it's very important. I love how you mentioned that if you stayed home that day with your sick kids, you would have to be replaced in the classroom. You can't be replaced at home as a mom.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. And so, because you ask about challenges, and I will say that once I retired, and then when I did get sick as a retired person, I thought, well, I don't have to wonder, do I stay at home or do I go to work today? And that part is good. But in being a working mom, to those that might be listening to this and being a working mom, that is a challenge. I know it's a challenge. You won't, and you're right, your children definitely should come before any profession. Absolutely. But, they've got a bad cold and they're saying, "Mama, don't leave me today. Mama, please stay at home." When really, they're going to be okay because you're leaving them with a lady that loves them dearly. But it's hard. It's hard to make those challenges if you are a working mom. Yeah.
Those are hard
Yeah.
choices. So
Yes.
I want to talk to you about like our culture now, because you said you were 26 when you first became a mom. So do you see, or what do you see in our culture now that's a good resource for moms that wasn't available when you started your motherhood journey?
A good resource. And since I am a grandmother, and then therefore I really don't use resources, and all my grandchildren right now are, the youngest is 15 and the oldest is like 23. Uh, they have so many, a good podcast that to listen to. There are so many good ways to chat with each other and whatever. And in doing so, I think you have to learn to filter through and find what's best for you and what meets your needs. So you've got so many good resources. On the flip side of that is that I think it's more of a challenge and harder to be a parent today because of social media. So because we do have access to so much, you've got to filter through what is good and what is not good. And then you've got to deal with children on cell phones and social media that I, as a parent, did not have to deal with. I didn't have to deal with that. Again, cell phones are wonderful, but they used incorrectly. And that was a challenge that I didn't have. Even as an educator, I think educators have a hard time dealing with that. Being a mom, being a parent, and you've got to decide, do I let my child have a cell phone at age whatever because his friends do? But again, our social media can be wonderful for us. And so you've got to reach out. I think it's easy to, just go walk with a best friend, or go walk with someone that you really admire and you've seen them be a good mother and a good a grandmother or whatever. So you're right, and you young people have more. You have more knowledge of that than I do, as far as all the different resources that you have available. Technology, I understand most of it, but there's a lot of it yet that I don't do. So I'm not aware of all the podcasts that are out there. But yes, there are so many things that are available today that I didn't have, and I don't begrudge that, because again, I think that along with that brings all the challenges of social media and those things that are not good.
And
So just use it correctly. Just use
yeah,
it correctly. Yeah.
yeah. Social
Right.
media definitely makes us compare ourselves to others, where if before social media, you're just comparing yourself the day before, am I better
You're
today?
right. And if you're not careful, you can almost be envious and jealous
Yeah.
of somebody that appears that it's better, when later you find out the real picture and whatever. So do be careful. Do be careful in looking at social media too much.
Yeah.
Restrict yourself. And you're right. Don't compare yourself because you look mighty rough and that person on social media sure did look good today. Well, you should have seen them before they look like they do now. So don't forget that. Don't forget that we can really make ourselves look good on social media. So be careful. Be careful using it.
Great
Right.
advice. Great advice. Okay, so speaking of advice, what advice do you have? And you may have given this even to new moms that you know anyway, even in your family. What advice do you have for new moms?
You know, I don't mean to wear out the fact that I'm Christian,
No,
but
no.
I will tell you that believing in the Lord and letting Him be the number one in your life, praying daily. If it's 5 minutes, if it's 5 seconds, do not start your day without a little bit of contact with the Lord. I, being retired, I have, and I'm grateful for that. I have time to read my devotion books and pray, and I do. I've got a prayer board that's got many people on it. But I will say, Lord, give me the wisdom. Let God's be Christian, be Christian, and let God be the number one. And God send me to people that can help me be the mom that I want to be. In going to church and going to a body of believers, it's amazing what people you'll find there that would love to be a resource, that would love to help you with your children, and put them in the nursery and preschool and sit there with your spouse and listen to the sermon and sing the songs and be free for maybe 30 minutes or an hour. And so take advantage of all those opportunities that you can to be with your spouse, for you all to have a date night, to have somebody, grandmother, and to come and stay with the baby and whatever. But don't forget about your mate. In fact, I think the best thing that you all can do for each other is to love each other. Moms, you love your child's dad, and dad, you love your child's mom in the way. You be a spouse that you need to be, because in doing so, then you're going to be the parent you need to be. It obviously needs to be a joint. It needs to be jointly. And moms, it may fall in your lap to be the one that's responsible to do that, to say, hey, we need to go out this weekend, or we need to go out Friday night, and have somebody to keep the baby. So give yourself the opportunity to date your mate, to go out and don't forget each other. Don't forget each other. Try to include your husband. Try to definitely include your husband in helping you with the baby and teaching him how, to take care of a small child. Some men are a little bit intimidated by holding a small baby. They're just awkward about it. And some, it just comes very natural. So for a new mom, don't forget yourself. Always, number one, always ask God for help. Give me wisdom, gives me strength. Let me be the wife I need to be. And he will help you be the mom that you need to be. But take care of yourself. Take care of yourself, and you and your husband go out as often as you can, and go to church. Go to church, put the child in the nursery. That's okay. That's okay. Give yourself the opportunity to sit there for a whole hour with your spouse and be fed. Be fed.
I think
Those would be some things I think I'd say. Yeah.
yes, very
Yeah.
sage advice. I think there's a lot of moms out there that feel guilty putting their kids
Right.
in nursery to
I
take care of
agree.
themselves, but it's that 30 minutes or an hour that could get them through the
Yes.
rest of the week.
And I will tell you that you get up on Sunday morning and you're dressing your child to go to Sunday school and church, and you're so proud of them. You get them all dressed up, and that's when they poop. That's when they throw up on you. and you say, oh my gosh, I'm just going to stay home. No, you clean that child up. You get that child ready. And if you're 10 minutes late, that's okay.
Right.
Don't let that ever stop you. Don't let that ever stop you, because that's just going to happen. And I think that's Satan saying, well, I'm just going to find out how really devoted they are and how much they really want to go to Sunday school and church. So you just don't let those things bother you. If they spit up, clean it up and go on. That's just what you need to do.
I agree.
Get used
Put
to
it off till the next week, it'll happen again, or something different will
You're
happen,
exactly right.
and it'll just
And
keep.
then when you continue to be unfed, then you'll just find yourself not there anymore, and that's not a good place to be. That's not a good place to be.
No, we need all the
Right.
help we can get. That's for sure.
I agree.
So
Absolutely.
this is like college drop-off season for a lot of moms. What advice do you have for those moms entering either for college, or their child is moving away, or they're getting married? What an empty nest season advice do you have for moms?
Yes, it could be sad, but and I remember when we took our daughter off to college, and when we came home, then there wasn't a child there anymore that night, and I was sad. My husband went to bed and went to sleep, no problem. I did too. I was grateful that they could be at the point in life they were healthy. They wanted to go to college. We could work it out that they did. So just rejoice that you can do that. That if they're getting married, rejoice that they can do that. And I pray to a godly spouse. Be grateful that your child can do that. There are families whose children, because of a mental illness or because of a situation, they'll never be able to do that. And so if that's what's happening, if you are taking them off to college, if they are getting married or whatever, just be grateful. And hopefully we have prepared them that they can accept that. So rejoice in it. Rejoice in it and be happy for them. And you go home and you get busy being a wonderful spouse to your partner, and maybe pick up a hobby or something that you've had to put aside for a while and you had to park it. Well, pick it back up and do it. Enjoy that time, and then enjoy your children, visit them in college, support them with phone calls or whatever they will allow you to do. Be supportive and rejoice in the fact that they can do it. And then you and your spouse maybe reconnect and get to do some things that you had not been able to do before for a while.
That's a great
Enjoy.
of being
Yeah,
thankful they can hit that milestone.
right.
That's an
I think, Michelle, we need to enjoy the journey. We need to enjoy the journey. If I may say that in losing my husband dying 6 years ago, as I look back, I think about all the roles that I played in life. You know, you're a child, and then you're a student, and then eventually you become a worker. You're an employee. You're a wife. You're a mother. You're a grandmother. And all of those roles, it just seemed like you just sort of flowed into it. I will say that being, I don't like to say widow, I really don't, but being in this role is the hardest role I've ever played. It's not natural. It's not something that's joyful, and it's like, oh my goodness, I didn't know it would hurt this way. So being retired and you wake up one morning and then all of a sudden your day's not planned. So you've got to plan your day. And so, you want to do the right things by it. So being a retired person and then being a widow, and particularly the widow part, is a hard role to play. So enjoy being a mother and enjoy all those roles that being a mother of a small child, being a mother of a middle school kid, being a mother of a teenager, being a mother of a college student, being a mother of a newly married. So enjoy all of those roles and just always ask God for advice and wisdom, and you'll just know. You'll just be able to play those roles and enjoy it. Enjoy the journey. Enjoy the journey.
I agree with you.
Yes.
I love how you
Right.
mentioned all the seasons of motherhood that we go through. And actually, we were at church last night and I was asking my husband, I was like, I always wonder if we will experience weather seasons in heaven, because I love snowflakes. I love fall
Right.
leaves. And I mean, there's things I don't like about the seasons too, but there are things in every season of weather outside that I love. And I know heaven is supposed to be perfect. So like, if it's perfect, we got to have some of these things we experience on earth, the good parts of them in heaven too.
Exactly.
And what you just said when you mentioned every season of being a mom or every role we play, there are things that we love about those, and we can think of remember them fondly, and then there are parts that we don't like how hard it is,
Absolutely.
yeah, being a
Right.
widow, and those hard parts are the ones we don't have to worry about in heaven, which is a relief.
Exactly. Exactly.
you know we go
But
through
I
here.
Exactly. But and again, I will say, being a Christian here, we can have a little bit of heaven here. We use the expression heaven on earth.
Yes.
Being a Christian here, it doesn't take away the tears. You have tears when you're a mother of a small child, and they go off to school, and then some of their friends are not nice to them, and you go to bed because you're sad because they're sad. But again, that's life. That's life. And the stronger you are, you're going to be able to give them good advice, because they're going to have difficult times. And then that makes you have difficult times. When your children are not happy, then you're going to get the benefit and reap the repercussions of that. And yes, being a parent to me is the hardest, most rewarding thing I ever have done. And I'm still a parent. When my daughter first became a parent and she called me, she said, Mama, I realized that this job is 24/7. And I said, for the rest of your life.
Right.
Once you're a mom, you are a mom for the rest of your life. You sure are. And it can be fun, but there's going to be bumps in the road. There's going to be bumps in the road. Yeah.
So true. So when
Right.
you think about when you first became a mom back in those early days and comparing yourself to you now, looking back, what are you most proud of when you think?
I'm proud that if I died and went to heaven today, and I'm okay. I'm okay. My children would grieve, but my children can take care of themselves, and that's a joy. My children are married to wonderful spouses. They're doing a wonderful job with my grandchildren, and that's rewarding. I get the benefit of that, and so it's just like anything that we do. When you plant a seed and you water it and you pull out the weeds, and eventually it becomes a tomato plant, or it becomes a zinnia, or whatever it was that you planted. All the care that you took into managing that for it to produce a beautiful rose or a beautiful whatever, or a tomato that you can eat. But the end result was good. But you had to nourish it, and you had to pull out the weeds, and you had to do things. In being a mother, you're going to reap the benefit of all of those years that you put into nursing them and supporting them, correcting them, disciplining them, doing the things that you wanted to make the end product to be who they wanted to be. And so I think I get to do that. I think that, I get up and I go about my day, and I don't worry about, well, I wonder what decisions they're making today, or are they going to have, I just know they are in the Lord, and that allows me then to do the things that I get to do. But it's every day. It's important. It's just important in being the best mom you can be, and not neglecting them, knowing that it's the most important job you have, because at the end of the day, you're going to reap the benefit of it or not, if we neglect them along. And yes, we know there are wonderful children raised in wonderful homes, and they go through some difficult seasons. There are children that are raised in very, very difficult circumstances, and they turn out wonderful. But the likelihood of that child wind up being the adult you want them to be, it's going to be greater. The percentage of it happening is going to be greater if you invest yourself and help them to know Jesus as soon as they can. I just think that's important. You invest yourself in Jesus, and then you be a Christian example every day. You be the Christian example every day. Then you're gonna reap the benefits. You are.
I agree. I agree. Okay, so thank you so much for all you've shared. You just mentioned, one day when you're gone, your children will grieve, and they'll be okay. So what do you hope to be
Yes.
remembered for when that happens?
I think the older one gets, and I've got gray hair, and I'm 79 years old. I have always in church up until, and I still am, but I was directors of lots of children's programs, Vacation Bible School, Awana, and for many, 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 many years. It pleases me when I see children that are now adults, and they are being Christian adults. I want them to know that Linda Arms loved Jesus. And I would like to think that somewhere along the way, to think that I played a part in them making the decision to follow Jesus. I really, really, that would be the most important thing. And I think that happens with age. You learn to know what's important. But I just think that living a Christian life here on earth is just, I think that we owe it to our children to introduce them as children. Don't wait till they're teenagers and they've made some bad choices, or to as an adult. And it's good to become a Christian as an adult rather than not at all. But to think that the life could have been different and your decisions would have been different. So introduce children to Jesus so they can make some important decisions along the way that's going to affect their life forever. It would be that she loved Jesus. There's a song that I don't regret a mile I've traveled for the Lord, and I don't. And some of them were hard in doing those children's ministries and whatever. It was difficult. There were difficult times, but I never did want to quit. I never did want to give it. In my age and whatever I have. But I still do Good News Club at East Robertson Elementary on Monday afternoon. We'll start that back in September from 3 to 5 in the afternoon. We minister to grades 1 through 5, and I'll still be doing that in September.
That's awesome. So what would you say is your favorite hymn or Bible verse or both? Do you have a favorite?
My favorite, there's many hymns, but my favorite Bible verse would be, "Delight in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart." Now, you think about what's the desires of your heart. Okay, is it a new car? Is it a larger house? No, the desires of your heart's got to be in accordance to God's will.
Right.
And so delight in the Lord, and I do. And the desires of my heart would be that my children and my grandchildren every day want to walk in God's will. I think when you're out of God's will, you're in His way. I think when you're out of God's will, you're in dangerous territory. You are, and including me. I'm not perfect, and I know that. But I know that if I'm in God's will, the decisions I make, they're going to be okay. If you wonder, what should I do about this situation? Well, stay in God's will and you'll know what to do. I've often said that, when you're laying on the beach in Florida and you look up and there's a plane that flies over, and on the tail of the wing, it says, "Eat it, Joe's." And sometimes when I was going through a difficult time, I'd say, "Lord, just let me walk outside and see an airplane. It's got the answer. It's got the answer on the tail of an airplane." And God never has spoken to me. He never has given me an answer back in that way. And then He said, "Read my word. Read my word." I'd get in the word. I would go to Sunday school on Sunday. I would listen to a sermon, and there it was. So you've got to expose yourself to God's word in order to know His will. So I'm not a preacher. I don't want to be a preacher, but I tell you what, I'm a believer, and it has worked well for me. It has served me well, and I rejoice in that. I rejoice in my life as a result of my parents, even though I'm going to use the expression, poor as Job's turkey. Okay, we were poor, but they never failed to take us to Sunday school and church, and I appreciate that. So that's it, Michelle.
I love that quote. If you're not in God's will, you're in His way. I've never heard that.
You are. Yeah. In my opinion, you're in His way. And and so you better get back in God's will so He can use you. So use you. Yeah.
I don't want to be in His way. So that's awesome.
I don't either.
I'm going to do that.
You can.
I thank you so much, Linda. And I just want to thank you personally, not just for being on the podcast, but also being such a great role model. When I was an early new teacher, I wasn't young, but I was a new teacher, didn't know what I was doing. And you're one of the people that I attribute to surviving those first years.
Yes. Well, you and I, those first years, I started in 1998 in that building. And those are my first years as an administrator full time. I had been a half-time administrator back in the 80s for 3 years. I was assistant principal half a day and teacher half a day. So that was those years that you were there was the first time I was a full-time administrator. And so it was a challenge to both, but we both did okay. Did okay, Michelle.
Yeah, we made it through, and we're still here today. Not teaching, but we're still here. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and taking time out of your day. And I appreciate you as a person and a Christian sister in Christ. And I just thank you for all the wisdom you've shared with our listeners. And I hope that you continue to live for the Lord and find that joy every day when you get up, even during this difficult season that you're in. And I just pray blessings on your family.
Thank you. And thank you, Michelle, for what you do. I think this is wonderful. And obviously you and Michael being godly couple and parents and whatever, grandparents also, aren't you?
Yes.
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 Exactly.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Exactly. So enjoy. Thank you. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you so much. We're all out here surviving in this journey of motherhood, going through the different seasons of parenting and life. Thanks for listening to the Work Harder Mama podcast with Michelle. I'm Michelle Hollingsworth, and if you're interested in reading more about the seasons of motherhood, I did write a book. It's called Work Harder: Meditations for Moms, Season by Season. And you can find it online anywhere books are sold. You can also find it on our website, workharder.com. That's WORKHEARTER.com. You can follow us on Instagram at WorkHarder and at WorkHarder Mama. And our Facebook is called Work Harder Press.